Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I am crafting with Spellbinders Make It Merry card making kit. This is the annual holiday card making kit and I think it's fabulous that it's being released in July because I am in full force Christmas in July crafting and it feels really good to get a jump start on my holiday makes. So today I am going to make a complete set of 15 cards from Kendra's Card Challenge. We are up to challenge number 11. And if you are not familiar with Kendra's Card Challenge, it's where you can turn 6 sheets of 6x6 pattern paper into 15 US A2 size cards. And the sketch challenge is a fabulous opportunity to not only get this amazing free resource from Kendra, but as well to enter to win prizes from some really generous, amazing sponsors. Today I'm using the Make It Merry card making kit because I think the Spellbinders kits are just really well suited for sketch challenges because there's everything that you need in the kit. And what I like to do is start off by picking my 6 sheets of pattern paper that you'll need for a complete set of cards if that's what you want to do. And what I reference as I'm picking my papers is primarily I look at the sketches themselves. I do like to print everything out in full color because everything is color coded, so you can tell which sheets of or which patterns are combined with one another as you are making your selections. And I do like to label them as I go with these little post-it notes, and I label it according to the way that it's labeled on the cutting guide. When I'm looking at combining multiple pattern papers on a single card, what I'm looking for is for each of the patterns to be a little bit of a contrast from one another, because everything is going to coordinate really well if you are choosing your papers from the same paper pad as I'm doing today. In the card making kit, you get a 6x6 paper pad with 40 sheets of single-sided papers. There are 20 unique designs, so lots to choose from, and you do get 2 of each of those unique designs. It is a paper weight, so this isn't a lightweight cardstock paper pad, but it is really lovely for especially if you do plan to add additional mats and layers to your cards, because it's that nice lightweight card or paper. Now, as I was mentioning, I do like to look for a little bit of contrast. So by that I mean if I'm choosing a paper that is dark in color, I might want to pair that with a paper that is lighter. If I'm choosing a paper that maybe is a geometric, I like to pair that with a floral or maybe a design that has some icons or graphics on it. If I've chosen something that is really colorful, then I like to pair that with maybe a pattern that's more monochromatic. And as well, the other thing I look for is the density of the pattern. So sometimes if I'm using something that has like a really small repeat pattern, I will tend to want to pair that with something that is maybe a larger print. So that when you see each of these different patterns on the same card, they each have a little bit of a moment to shine because they look distinct enough from one another that your eye just doesn't register them as sort of all the same. So that's what I mean by having some contrast. Everything's going to coordinate beautifully because it's all within the same color palette of the paper pad, and as well all sort of similarly themed. And so everything will kind of work with everything else, but I feel like some things might work a little bit better paired with others. I am now cutting down my 6 sheets of pattern paper, and when you look at the cutting guide as you see it here, you'll notice there's a lot of markings on here. And all of it is useful information to have. So the first thing to note is that there is an icon of a pair of scissors, and that's going to show you where you want to make your first cut. But as you're choosing subsequent cuts, what you want to be looking for is a cut line that goes clear from one edge to the other edge without intersecting or going through another piece of or segment on here. And so that way you don't accidentally cut through a piece that you need to use on one of the sketches. I did make a mistake cutting my first my first sheet, but that's okay. If you make a mistake, don't worry. Just kind of go with the flow when you get to that sketch. And that is definitely something that I definitely always recommend with any sketch challenge, is that it's really meant to be a starting point to launch your creativity. So don't feel like, even though the sketch and the cutting guide has all of the measurements, has really precise details, that you don't have to take that to mean that you have to follow it precisely in order to qualify to play along with the challenge. You can adapt things and put your own little twist on it and make it work for whatever occasion or focal image that you've chosen. So definitely look at this as a starting point, and take liberties where you'd like. The other thing to note on here is there's a number indicated on each of these segments. That tells you which sketch number that particular piece will be used on. And what I like to do as I'm cutting down my 6x6 pattern papers is I like to organize all of the pieces by sketch number into the accordion folders that are just off camera to the left there. And I have in each of the little kind of sections in my accordion folder, I've labeled that by sketch number, and I drop all of these segments in according to their sketch number. These index size accordion folders are really great because it also fits your USA2 card base. So I can put my card base in there, I can cut down additional mats and layers as I'm preparing for the video. Everything can go in there, including any focal images and sentiments that I have prepared and ready to go. That way, when I go to sit down and film my video, everything is all in one place for me, and I can just pull out each card and everything that is needed for that card, all nice and tidy in this one little area. Actually, technically I have to have 2 accordion folders because each one only holds 13 slots, and there are 15 different card layouts that you can create. The other thing that you'll note with the cutting guide is that there is an arrow on each of these segments, and that indicates to you the direction that piece will be used on the card sketch it's featured on. If all of the arrows are pointed in the same direction, that is a good clue to you that if you wanted, you could use a directional pattern paper for that particular paper. I sometimes have my heart set on using a particular paper that's directional, and even though there might be maybe 1 or 2 segments that are in a different direction, I'll still use it. And I just figure that when I get to the sketch, I will figure something else out. So, like I said before, feel free to kind of use this as a starting guide. There are lots of different things that you can do when you go to make your cards, where you can sort of adapt things to use a directional paper if you want. Now I'll start to assemble each of the 15 cards, and one of the things that you can do to address maybe picking a pattern paper that had a particular orientation is you can just rotate your card. So sketch number 1, as it's shown in the PDF, is actually landscape in orientation. But what I've done is turned it and made it a portrait orientation. And so This pattern paper works just fine, it's non-directional, but if I had chosen a paper that had a particular orientation to it, then just by rotating the card, I can then adapt for or use that directional paper and it will make sense. So that's one thing that you can do to use a pattern paper that is directional in nature, even if as the card sketch has it shown, it may not work. Just turn your card and that often will solve your problem. The other thing that you will notice in the card sketches is that there are additional suggestions for mats and layers. You can use anything that you want there. So anything that is white, grayscale, or black, that's opportunity for you to use solid color cardstock. You can use an inky background that you've made. You can use, if you are into gel printing, you can gel print your own pattern papers and supplement your card designs that way. You can emboss a panel, or you can do what I'm doing on this card, which is to use some more pattern paper. So this is just another pattern paper from the same paper pad, and I've gone ahead and used that as one of my matte layers on this card. The one thing that I really love the Spellbinders card kits for is all of the amazing ephemera that you get. It makes it really fun to play along with sketch challenges to use these card kits because you get everything that you need to make beautiful cards in the card making kit, because we get our solid color cardstock, which I did use a bit in my first card. You get your 6x6 pattern paper pack, 40 sheets of single-sided papers, 28 designs, 2 of each design. In this particular card kit, there's actually 2 packs of die-cut ephemera. One has a lot of these different images and graphics, and as well sentiments of a variety of different colors, different sentiment phrases, different size, different shapes. So some are banners, some are larger labels or badges. So there's a really good variety, and then some are foiled, some are on colored cardstock, some are on white background. So there's going to be something that you can find for your card design. Really generous supply of die cuts in that. There's a second pack of die cuts, and that one is all about tags. So lots of fun tags. You can use those for your gift tags. You can use them as elements on your cards. I chose a few to use and feature on my cards today. Then besides the 2 ephemera packs, there are a lot of different sticker sheets that we get. There's 2 full sticker sheets of sentiments, which are great. You have some puffy stickers, sentiments. You have some other, a pack of other sentiments as well. One's gold foiled and the other is colorful, variety different colors, variety different sentiments, all holiday themed. And then on top of that, there's also some chipboard ephemera as well. So in that pack you get some focal images, a lot of similar ones as in the die cut ephemera, but these are chipboard stickers, so they're a bit more dimensional and already have adhesive on the back. Really fun and easy to craft with those. And in the chipboard embellishments, there's a mix of sentiments as well as things that you can use or collage together as focal images. So really lovely. Then on top of all of that, we do get 2 sheets of gold mirror cardstock. I've used a bit on this card here, and as well 2 sheets of silver foil cardstock or mirror cardstock. Then you also get your USA 2 size card bases and matching envelopes and 5x7 card bases and envelopes. And while the sketch challenge is designed for USA 2 size cards, there's nothing saying that you can't adapt them to fit a larger or a different card size. So 5x7, if there's another popular card size where you're located, maybe 4x6, 6x6, I think those are pretty common in the UK. You can always adapt to different sizes. And so there's so much flexibility with the sketch challenge, and in the card making kit, there's just so much available to you to craft with, including adhesive. So the adhesive you see me using now is a roll of double-sided adhesive tape, and that comes in the kit, as well as 2 sheets of foam squares. By the way, with those foam squares, after you've used the pre-cut little squares, you can use the rest of that too. I just cut it down, and you don't have to waste it. It isn't, you know, you do have to cut it down because it's not pre-cut into those nice squares, but it's the same materials, and so you may as well make use of it and not let that go to waste. The other thing that I like to do is, as I mentioned, kind of add additional pattern papers, and that's one of the reasons why I love working with card kits that come with pattern paper, is because everything is going to coordinate really, really well together. So here I've used the pattern papers that are part of the sketch are that large panel with the dark red and the little, it's actually hearts. It might be hard to see that on screen, but it's really cute, these little hearts. And then the little banner flags at the bottom are part of the sketch challenge, but I've brought in some of the solid color cardstock as well as another pattern paper to make this look like a prize ribbon. And then I use one of the die cut ephemera pieces and a sentiment from that same die cut ephemera pack to complete my card. On this card, I remember how I mentioned that sometimes if you're looking at the cutting guide, if all of the arrows point in one direction, it's a great opportunity to use directional paper. In this particular challenge, there isn't any of the 6 that are all, facing the same direction, but there are some that come pretty darn close. And for those, that's where I did choose a directional paper, just because I just really love the print, and on sketches where there was that pattern was displayed more prominently, I felt like it would work really well. And I knew at the outset as I was choosing my pattern papers that by the time I got to the sketch, I would just figure something out. Well, this is one of those where I just needed to figure something out, because I chose that pattern with the maroon, red, and the white hearts that you saw earlier. One of those pieces should have been used on this card, the topmost section. And so what I did, because I wanted to keep the orientation of this card the way that it is, I decided to just swap in a different pattern paper, and I'll just use that piece that I cut somewhere else. And it actually just so happened that it worked out really well on a different sketch later on, where again, the orientation of that very same paper was not cut exactly the way that it's meant to be used on the sketch, rather than change the sketch, because I could have rotated this to solve that for that, but I decided to just swap in a different pattern paper instead. And that's why it's nice to work with the Spellbinders paper pads, because you do get 20 different designs, so there's a lot to choose from. And in this case, I had a second pattern that is also directional, so I wanted to make sure that I could still use that one. And so you can always take those liberties where you'd like. If there's a pattern that was from the original 6 sheets that you chose, but everything else worked out really well in combination with each other, but for whatever reason one felt a little bit of an oddball, feel free to swap that out for something else, or swap it out, maybe swap in place of it some solid color cardstock, or a different pattern paper, or an embossed panel. It's definitely up to you to do what you feel works best for your card. The lovely thing about these PDF that you can download is that it does have everything very precisely laid out, and it gives you a really great framework if you are new to card making, or if you are looking for something a little bit more prescriptive, but it's not meant to inhibit your creativity. So feel free to mix things up a little bit. Here again is an area where that first pattern, that first banner is actually not from the original 6 that I chose. It's just something I decided I wanted to swap in. So these sticky mats from scrapbook.com, by the way, are pretty cool. So what this is a it's slightly sticky. It's pretty low tack, but it's got a grid on it. And so it's meant so that you can line things up with that grid, and then put adhesive, on the back, and then go and place that onto your card. And when you do that, it just helps you, if you have a hard time like eyeballing and centering things, but that's the look that you want, it can really help with that. And because it's low tack, it helps you to arrange things so that they're nice and straight. And if you're like me and you like to use a strong adhesive that grabs really fast, even though oftentimes those give you a little bit, liquid adhesive will give you a little bit of wiggle room for placement, sometimes it's just not enough, especially when you have to place so many items, like all of these banners that I wanted to stretch across from one end to the other. I really wanted to make sure that I had that all spaced right. And so it's nice to use that low tack kind of sticky mat from scrapbook.com. I'll leave links to everything, both the Make It Merry kit, as well as there's actually a small collection of add-ons that you can get that coordinate beautifully with it, and I'll be crafting with those in another video. But I'll leave links to all of that. That scrapbook.com sticky mat I love. I have it in a couple different sizes, and I've really enjoyed using it. And as well, I'll leave links to Kendra's card challenge too. So if you want to pick up that free PDF, you have until the end of September to craft along with the challenge and enter to win some really fabulous prizes that have been donated by a lot of different sponsors. So definitely check that out. And what I'll do is set the rest of this video to some music so you can just sit back, relax, and watch the rest of these cards come to life. I won't rejoin you at the end with a voiceover, so I'll just say my goodbyes now. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Thanks, bye!